Greetings, salutations, respect, and love, punks. Oh, today's going to be a good one. Welcome to the Prog Corner, where we are going to be exploring one of my favorite bands of all time is XTC. And as you can readily see, if your eyes are working up on the panel today, hey, where are all the regulars? Where's Wayne? Where's Cody? You're probably wondering. Well, yeah, they have not been fired. They will be back next week, but we're doing things a little different today. I've got the one, the only Pontus, the Swedish prog nerd with me today. Pontus, what's going on? And
I'm doing fine. I'm doing absolutely doing great, and I love this band. So it will be great to talk about them. This is, it's spring is coming to Stockholm, so we're having a lovely Sunday, and it's going to be a great talking about this. The Sweden's finest, so love it.
Swindon's finest indeed. Yeah, I just put down on the crawl. This is just going to be basically like an infomercial, where I'm selling a Ginzu knife or something. That's all this is all day. Yeah, we're going to talk about XTC, but it's really all about getting subscribers. I never talk about subscribers on the channel. You guys know that. It's one of my big bugaboos. Everybody always talks about hit that button, do that. Don't tell me what to do, bro. I don't like it, but I'm telling you, I'm getting so close to 10,000 subscribers mark that I can taste it, that I'm going to start putting a big push on it. But joining us today, Pontus, I'm excited about this. Somebody I've known for a long time, my good friend, President and CEO of Punk Media. It's Mark Robinson. Mark, how are you today?
Hey, hello to all your people, your fans, and you guys. Great being on here. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah,
looking forward to this one. XTC is, they're just genius.
They really are. Mark, I want you to talk just a little bit about what you've got going on, because Pontus doesn't have a YouTube channel all his own yet.
I'm the cuckoo. I end up at everybody else's channels, right?
Yeah, you just show up wherever.
The contrarians and all that stuff.
The contrarians is obviously where I first encountered you, but now I'm flipping around YouTube everywhere I go. There's Pontus making an appearance. It's kind of like Joan Rivers, a late night television. But Mark, you actually do have a YouTube channel to pimp. And it is the Punk Media channel. It's chock full of great stuff. If you like the weird music, if you like the G.G. Allens of the world or the Tiny Tims, Nervous Norvis, Mark, who else you got on the label? Oh, I'm on the label. That's right.
Well, yourself, of course, with the Mighty Wedge piece.
Oh, yeah. Here it is. Here it is for the peeps.
There it is.
Some of whom have already gotten their hands on this. I did have a contest not too long ago where I gave out some of these bad boys. Look at that beautiful.
Nice digipack. It's a great artwork. But there's also a Wedge piece digital only release that you can find on all the streaming platforms, except Lemore, which also has a video on the Punk Media channel. And
even
Punk
better.
Media. What I try to do with Punk Media is get these artists or whomever and take them outside of their element. Now that's where G.G. Allen came into play. I took him and we made a country record. So it's not like any of his normal stuff. In fact, one of the tracks off that, there's a Zevon cover, Carmelita, was in a Showtime episode of Californication. It was the opening scene in season 3. And it's also on the soundtrack. So I try to take these artists and take them out of their element and let them be free. And that's what we did with Tiny Tim as well. Took the ukulele out of his hands, let him tell me what he wanted to do, which was a tribute to Russ Colombo. We got a big band behind him and let it go. And for both these two projects, I just want to mention the genius behind it is this guy named Paul Reller, R-E-L-L-E-R, not like the jam guy, Paul Weller. He's phenomenal, and he's the one that really he was the straw stirring the drink in both of those projects.
And they're both amazing stuff. And
but we have other stuff too. Like there's Sleepy LaBeef. We did a project with him, which is an old country artist. unfortunately he's passed. And then Nervous Norvis, I acquired some of his music, which was also in the Netflix. There was a show, I can't remember the name of it now off the top of my head.
You should know these things. They're your artists. You're a terrible pitch man for your own label.
I'm being nervous too, because I've never done one of these podcasts. So I'm my own Nervous Norvis.
That's all good.
I'm Not Okay With This is the Netflix series. And it was in an episode that they used a Nervous Norvis on. And he was an old guy that, you know, he had a couple hits way back in the 50s. Transfusion was his biggest hit. And then one called Ape Call. And I came about in these recordings. Norton Records issued his catalog, and these were the ones that they didn't issue. So it's kind of cool that he's part of the whole gig too. And then we have
and then we've got up and coming country singer Rachel Brooks. Was once part of the punk universe, whose career is kind of taken off a little bit here. So that's got to feel good that, you know, you were part of that whole thing. Yeah. And of course the Wedge piece.
What's that?
And of course, you know, you round out everything that you guys did at punk and are still doing at punk with the great Wedge piece. But you know what?
Mark, are you on Bandcamp? Can one check out your stuff?
I will be on Bandcamp very soon. I'm sorry to say I don't have the page fully up and going yet.
All right.
I will be starting in about a week.
All right, cool.
We just talked about
that. You can find all the punk media artists and releases on all these streaming services. Spotify.
Cool. I will check them out.
All of them. Everywhere. So just, you know, hit Punk Media or any of the titles. And I just put up something, a Foul Existence video thing that Scott's part of. That was one of his bands back in the day too. So you can see he's very much part of the whole punk media landscape.
That's
and always has been.
Hey, we've got some people that are admittedly not like huge XTC fans. And I get it. This is a channel called the Prog Corner, but it's a testimony to just how awesome my subscribers are, that they're willing to go on a journey with us today. And, you know, I kind of want to start with Pontus. Talk to me about your connection to XTC, what they mean to you, kind of when you found out about them, and that, you know, your whole backstory with them, and then present us however you want with whatever list that you prepared for today.
Yeah. The thing is that they were quite big in Sweden.
Really?
They were sort of an underground band that they were the critics' choice, right? They always been.
Right.
And here, you know, I think the first time I encountered them was the English Settlement album. When I had, in the village I grew up in, we had a record store, and he was very much into the early 80s stuff. And he found out about XTC, and he was very much Roger was his name. He actually championed them throughout the 80s. So he always had the records there and ready. And I remember when Skylarking came out, I heard that record and loved it. But you know, there's always a tune, there's always a moment when you find out that this is your band, this is something I want to explore more. And the fact was that we had a folk show on Swedish radio that played all the British folk and all sorts of weird stuff. And one night they played an ecstasy tune, which is gonna end up on my list somewhere.
Okay.
It's called One in a Million. It's a folk tune from Oranges and Lemons, and it really struck me as, I love this. It's just a fantastic song. So very Tully, very sort of folk music.
Oranges and Lemons,
yeah, a beautiful song. So from that on, I started getting the records, and I really, really enjoy their stuff. And one of the first ones I actually got by mistake, just by the cover, was Go To, because I love the cover. I love the texts. You know, it's a text cover. You know, it's just telling, you know, this is a record album. This is from the group XTC and so on.
Oh,
And I didn't understand.
I was going to actually, you know, before I started the YouTube channel, I did a lot of research. And one of the things they said was make sure that you never add a thumbnail that was too text heavy. Well, this was going to be the thumbnail for this video.
Oh, okay. All right. Good.
But I figured, you know what? I better listen to all the advice that I was given. Obviously, trying to you know, mimic their second album cover, but
yeah.
But that one didn't get approved.
No, but absolutely, I think they are. You know, you can argue that they worked from they came up through the punk scene in the late 70s, but let's face it, this punk scene or new wave scene had very much in common with the prog scene in that sense that it was exploring things, and it was actually people who tried to do different things in different sort of capacities. Like you instead you could do 3-minute pop songs, but you still searched for something really new.
Right.
So they are very off kilter from the start.
And that's the thing. You know, I always associated XTC more with bands that were not, you know, the punk bands per se, but more of the post-punk bands, I guess. I associated them more with bands like Wire or Talking Heads in my brain growing up, because I wasn't there early on. I came to XTC in 1979, so I had a little different entry point. Hey, Mark is back, so we can get back to
good.
Hey, there he is.
Good. One thing is interesting with the word prog, with the world of prog, really, because we're talking about, you know, a band that is essentially a very good and thought out pop band in many ways.
Yeah.
But let's face it, you know, two of prog's sort of backbone, the backbone of prog is in 1966, and it's 2 albums. It's Pet Sounds and Revolver, you know, and how great pop album can you get with Pet Sounds?
Yeah.
Pet Sounds has no psychedelia on it. It has, you know, it's just ornamented pop songs with huge arrangements and well thought out, very intellectual music, in a sense that you got to go from one place to another. You had to show a more adult sort of point from where you're going. Beatles, of course, go the same way. They go into a more sort of mature thing. Many would say it was the drugs, which was true.
It
but
didn't hurt. It wasn't the only thing, but yeah.
But you know, everything, you know, if we take Supper's Ready, for instance, in the middle of that, we have a pop tune, Willow Farm. If you go down to Willow Farm to eat the butterflies and all that, you have a pop tune in there. And mum to dad to dad, and all that stuff. So pop, and I mean, the Camels and the Caravans and so on. So the punk scene and the post-punk punk scene has this in common, to get into this sort of exploring things. That's why King Crimson ends up the way it does. It doesn't, you know, it's not, you know, there is a lineage. And I think XTC, of course, is one of Britain's greatest bands in that sense, because they really try to explore borders, and then they went very retro and really tried to explore that. So I love this band, and I think it's to me, they are very much the the British equivalent to Steely Dan in a sense, because Steely Dan is a very American band, both musically and lyrically.
Yeah,
they talk about American things. You know, they sing about it, and they use jazz elements, they use pop elements, they use you know, the great. I mean, the first hit, you know, to Do It Again is basically Light My Fire all over again. You know, it's great, but it's and here we have a British equivalent that just go for the British things. You know, like, you know, it's essentially British. I mean, they make a concept album about trains and train stations in Swindon, right? Yeah. The big express and the downfall of the train industry. So how British can you get? So
that's a good point. You're right, because there's some bands, like for years and years, I never knew that Foghat was from the UK, right? I had no idea. I thought they were American. I'm an idiot. Yeah. They toured the U.S. nonstop. They sounded like an American bar band to me, but I never for a second ever thought XTC was anything but British, right? I mean,
no, absolutely. So that's a point.
Yeah, I mean, his accent, that's part of the charm, I think, XTC at least caught my attention right away. It was his accent, like all good British pop, you know. Are you guys familiar with that first rendition called the Helium Kids at all?
Not much.
Yeah, they didn't do a whole lot as far as recording, but the Helium Kids was what it came from. And, you know, I love that early XTC sound. That first EP was just amazing, the 3D EP, and then the first two albums with Barry Andrews. Some people, you know, they kind of want to, you know, poo-poo those two early XTC albums. Don't do it, man. There's a reason Robert Fripp scooped up Barry Andrews right after he left XTC, because that dude is awesome, brother. And some of the cool dissonance going on with his, it wasn't a Farfisa, it was a different, he couldn't afford a Farfisa, so he had like a cheaper version of one, I guess, that he was using. It just,
and that was very popular. Cool. That organ sound was very popular. I mean, I remember one of the biggest Swedish bands around that time, and one of the biggest Swedish pop bands of all time, is a band called Gyllene Tider. That later became Roxette, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that we know.
And that band uses that for Fisa sound to an enormous extent, and was very into things like Tom Petty and all that stuff that was around. You know, Elvis Costello had the same organ sound in a sense. You know, you could hear that.
And
the basics. Naive.
Yeah.
What I love about what XTC did with that, though, was they took it, and Barry Andrews and Andy Partridge would like spend hours and hours and hours working on laying two different chords on top of each other that don't make any sense and should never be played together at the same time, but like doing like different variations of that throughout different songs, just intentionally blowing your minds. Just incredible. The dissonance found on those early XTC records really set them apart from anybody else. It showed that they were actually really, really thinking about what they were laying down. It wasn't just accidental. Everything was really, really well thought out. And to me, that lined up perfectly with prog rock, at least to my ears when I first discovered XTC.
I think that if the events of, let's say, Sex Pistols hadn't happened, I think these bands would have had, you know, they were lumped together with punk.
Yeah.
But they weren't. They were one step ahead of punk in that sense of Clash and all that stuff. Even Clash was ahead of itself, right?
It didn't take long. You know, if you think about it, the punk thing exploded in 76. And by 78, Mark, most of those original punk bands had moved on to something else entirely. By 79, the Clash is doing, you know, London Calling, for crying out loud. So really, by the time it washed up on American shores, it had already gone through that whole growth period and change period. So when, punks like me and Mark got a hold of it in the wastelands of Florida, we were eating that stuff up. To those of you that don't know, I don't think we mentioned this live yet, Mark, but Mark was actually the original bass player for Foul Existence. I was his replacement. How cool is that? Yeah, we were in the same band together, although not at the same time. We never did a show together, did we? I mean, in the same band. We did shows like Foul Existence and Disorderly Conduct, but we never played in the same band at the same time, did we?
Right.
Okay. Hey, look, it's That's Naomi correct. From Israel,
not, which would have been really fun. Again,
we gotta take a minute and say greetings. Naomi's in Germany right now. We love her. 365 days of Prague. Not familiar with XTC, but you will be by the end of this show, Naomi.
Yeah, if you listen, you're gonna know a few things. Shall I go on with my list?
It's your time, man. You do whatever you want to do.
Yeah, because as I said, I came in when through Skylarking, and that at that time they started to be more, had a psychedelic sort of tinge to them,
right?
And really went down
Didn't
that
Todd
route.
And produce that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
my number 10 is from a later album called Apple Venus.
Oh,
and it's a funny band because nothing ever works the way they wanted to work.
No.
They always were in the hairs of the producer, the record company. So when they release Apple Venus, it's after a few years of strike.
Yeah.
They just refused to make records just to get out of the contract with Virgin Records. And so that's quite fun. So one of my absolute favorite on that album is a song called Harvest Festival. Harvest Festival is exactly that equivalent of Beach Boys, very, very huge vocals, a beautiful melody, very pop, if you like Baroque pop, the big sort of there it is, the big sort of sound, the big lots of harmonies, and a beautiful ballad. And it's, if you're into that, if you're into the power pop thing and the whole 60s stuff and the whole a good melody, you get it here from the Harvest Festival.
Oh yeah, awesome track.
So then we go to the next Virgin album. It's called Nonsuch. It has nothing to do with the Elektra label, I think, but I love that album. It's, to me, and I have to say this, if you want to see me on Contrarians, you can go out and check out an XTC one we did with the whole. We discussed Nonsuch on an episode, and it's I think this is the closest we got to a record we never will get, a collaboration between McCartney and Brian Wilson. And to me, this record really nails that. It's a fantastic pop record, and it's the intelligence of the whole thing, the whole sort of making pastiche of Beatles and Beach Boys. Humble Dizzy is like having a sort of a Pet Sounds song, very but it's very tongue-in-cheek, so it's very beautiful, with all those ornaments you can find on Penny Lane, right?
Yeah,
you're right in the middle of that. that road, and that is just a fantastic song and a fantastic album.
Indeed.
Number 8 for me is from Murma, the 1983 album, and I just love this. This is a little folk tune. This is interesting because this band goes from punk sort of oriented stuff to pop to British folk, and this is one of them. It's called Love on a Farmer Boy's Wages.
Yeah,
I think it was a single out of that.
This album came out probably about a month or two before I met you for the first time, Mark. This came out like in '83, and I remember going down to Fort Pierce, and we ran into you, met you in '83 at some point. So yeah, I always associate this album with you for some reason.
Oh
cool.
Man, I'm gonna have to check that out in the form and fashion later.
Mummer.
Yeah, because it's one of those things where it's not an 80s. It hasn't an 80s sound to it.
No, sir. The next one
is a sort of it has a sort of a more modern sound than that.
Good call.
To me,
really,
and this is an acoustic number, right? So it's, but it has that sort of British folk, acid folk sort of thing, like you think Sandy Denny, Richard Thompson, sort of, a beautiful, beautiful song, and it's all quirky, right? It's all, you don't know where the music's going to go next, but this is at the same time, it always has hooks.
Yeah.
So it's gonna stick in your brain.
Yeah. This is their most claustrophobic album. This is their most schizophrenic album. This is the album they lost their drummer Terry Chambers. He's on a couple of tracks here, but after that, he's gone. And after this point, they would use just, session drummers. But man, over the years, they have some great drummers come in and out of their range.
Yeah, Pat Mastelotto is on there,
Absolutely, Pat Mastelotto.
And the guy from
Dave Maddox. Come on, it goes on and on with the great.
Yeah. And
Prairie Prince.
Dave Maddox is on one album.
Yeah.
So this is another thing with them. They had the lineup of, let's say, who's in the band. Andy Partridge is the leader of the group.
Right.
With guitar and keyboard.
What's going on with Mark, by the way? We can't just ignore this, Pontus. Like, the elephant in the room is like, hey, nobody's going to notice that Mark is just like popping in and out of the stream. Like,
yeah.
Oh, Lordy. Hey,
it's no problem.
Let's chastise him when he gets back on. Here he is. It's all good. What do we have? A bad Wi-Fi
I don't
connection?
know what's going on.
Well, Mark is from the wilds of Botswana, where internet connection is usually not great in that part of Southeast Africa. But it's all right. We came here for XTC, and we'll persevere as long as you don't mind. Mark popping in and out every now and then keeps it interesting. Actually, when I was doing all my YouTube tutorial, one thing they talked about was pattern interrupt. Well, with Mark popping in on the screen, that certainly will, fulfill that function. So thank you, and continue, Pontus. I promise. Yeah. I won't interrupt you again. I can't.
It's okay. I mean, you can help me out here, because Andy Partridge he forms the band, right? And he forms the band with Colin Modeling, and those are the two main songwriters.
Yeah.
Throughout their career.
Yeah.
And then they have Brian Andrews.
Yeah.
And then they have a keyboard, a drummer called Terry Chambers. Yeah. And then Andrews leaves.
Yeah, Barry wants a little more involvement in the band. In fact, he muscled his way into writing the last two songs on their second album, really giving the album a weird flow, if you ask me. But he wanted even more, so Barry and Andy had a little disagreement. Barry had to go.
So Dave Gregory comes in on guitar. So no more keyboards.
Think about that though. Think about the time, Pontus.
Yeah.
Think about what time it is.
It's
New wave is going crazy. The sound of the 80s is happening right before their eyes in 1978, early 1979. You lose your keyboard player. New wave is going crazy. That keyboard sound is everywhere. Synth pop is taking over the world. So Barry Andrews leaves. So what do? Let's hire a guitar player.
Yeah. And one thing is very interesting by then, because they work with Steve Lillywhite.
Yeah.
They work with you, Pagan. So they work with the guys that will sort of help Gabriel out and help Collins out. So these people are working with that guys.
Yeah.
And those guys. And it's just amazing. I just wanted to make that clear that by the time we have Murma, we just have 3 guys in the band. We don't have a steady drummer. They hire drummers for each album. So the funny thing is that that trio lasts until the late 90s, and the last album is done with just Molding and Partridge.
Sadly, Dave Gregory and Andy had some disagreements about the way that they were going to use the money that they had for what was supposed to be a 2-sided monster, the acoustic Apple Venus and the electric Wasp Star. Andy wanted to spend all this money on orchestras and this, that, and the other thing. And Dave Gregory's like, I can create all those sounds on a synthesizer at 1/10 the cost. And they just couldn't. Yeah, they couldn't get.
They couldn't see eye to eye.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is, I think the tug of war that is XTC is the fact that they produce this sort of weird, fantastic music. And in the middle of all this, they decide to form a side project called Dukes of Stratosphere. And Dukes of Stratosphere is basically a sort of labor of love for the 1960s psychedelia, which is in favor. It works fine for the 80s. It's one album and one EP. So I picked one of those songs as number 7, and that is "What in the World."
Oh, yes.
Which is it is a pastiche, a homage to psychedelic sort of mid 68, mid 67 pop. You can imagine something like Kings doing it, or The Move doing it.
Yeah,
it's just enormously well crafted. It has that sort of vibe to it that is and I don't think they were, because they had alias on those albums, so people weren't really sure who Dukes of Stratosphere were, but they came out very quickly and said that's us doing these albums.
There might have been a couple people fooled, but I remember Geffen sending promos for 25 o'clock to all the stores in the chain I was working for at the time. Mm-hmm. And it took me all of about 0.5 seconds to realize exactly who the Dukes of Stratosphere were. Just amazing. They really needed the Dukes. It was such an important record for them, 25 o'clock in particular, because the 2 that preceded it, the 2 XTC albums before that, didn't sell great, didn't have big hits on there. So it was kind of like at their, the nadir of their career. And then all of a sudden, 25 o'clock outsells their last 2 albums combined. Yeah. It gave them all the momentum they needed to go into the great career revival that was Skylarking. Yeah. None of that would have happened without the Dukes of Stratosphere.
No, absolutely. Yeah. And I think it sounds very fresh till this day. And it's definitely one of those things where you where you find an album where it's, you sense that they like what they're doing, they're having fun, and it shines through. Making these pastiches and finding new ways to doing it. So, and this is also important. This band is a studio band from 82 onwards, because Andy Partridge doesn't want to play live. He doesn't feel well to do that, in the same way that Syd Barrett maybe, or Anthony Phillips did. So this is a studio band now. So the studio is actually their playground, and it shows. They really work very well in that environment. It's like the Beatles last years, right? So number 7, What in the World? I'm going to go back to Non-Such and pick a Colin Modeling song that I really, really love, called My Bird Performs. Ooh. That is the second track of that album. It is, and that was produced by Gus Dudgeon, right?
That's correct.
And
people might know from the Rolling Stones and Elton John, and the list goes on, all the people he produced.
And I mean, he was the engineer for Space Oddity, as well. So he was really they really wanted him in to do that album, to do those really good pop tunes. And this is a fantastic sort of a pop tune with it's a pop ballad with a trumpet, and so you get those Penny Lane obligatos. You got lots of and you have the guitars, you have mellow, it's a bit mellow, but it has that beautiful melody, and it never leaves your head. And that is the strength of this band, that you have strong, very strong hooks and melodies. And may it be pop, may it be punk, or may it be prog, but it's definitely a band that you get into. And we talked about Skylocking, and Skylocking is this beautiful album produced, or half produced, by Todd Rundgren, which actually comes out of that Duke of Stratosphere phase, and really plays around with what can you do with psychedelia in the 80s. And one of the best McCartney tunes that he never wrote, and I think is really is up his sort of is a song called "Earn Enough for Us."
Yeah,
it
very
is,
McCartney.
Yeah, it's very McCartney-esque. We can actually call it the plague of the bus drivers, right? Because it's about a bus driver trying to earn enough for his having a date with his loved one and all that stuff.
So Andy Partridge.
Yeah, it's very funny. It's very quirky. It's very sort of British humor in the middle of it. I can take humiliation and bad comments on the bus as long as I meet you and can earn enough for us. It's one of those, and it's sung in a very, very McCartney-ish way, and the whole Skylocking album is fantastic. It is, but I like to go back to the Dukes of Stratosphere, because I love the opening track from 25 O'Clock. Is a pastiche. It's actually the bass line is from is taken from that I Had Too Much to Dream.
Absolutely, yeah.
The Electric Prunes.
Electric Prunes.
It has that sort of it has that sort of it's 25 o'clock, dude. And it's
look at the back of this
psychedelia
thing. Look at that artwork, man.
Yeah.
Wow. Cool.
You just love it. It's just a labor of love.
It's so cool.
And there's a great piano crash in the end. Beatles do one chord, they make a crash out of it, and that's just one thing. My number 3 is from the English Settlement album. This is a tune I started listening, you know, I re-listened to the albums, and this, I just couldn't get this out of my head. It's a song called Senses Working Overtime. And it's about being, you know, I think it's about being, you know, being in an environment where you have everything comes to you, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 senses working overtime. It's just a beautiful chorus. It's a beautiful pre-chorus, where everything is, and again, those lyrics, everything can be football shaped, and I can kick it into place, and I have to go through this smell, taste.
That's a good point. Name a song where the pre-chorus is the absolute best part of the song.
Yeah.
It's not the chorus, it's not the verse, it's not the middle eight, it's not the intro, it's not the outro, but rather the pre-chorus. And you're right. And all the world is football shaped. Come on,
yeah,
that's unreal. Good
absolutely. Call. And then it's cookies. The next round around, next time around, it's cookies, right? I absolutely. I mean, that album has that new wave sort of thing. There's some. It's a double album, right? So it's very much
in the UK, not in the US. Oh no.
Oh, it wasn't.
Oh no, in the US they gave us this piece of crap.
Oh,
taking out all the best material, and I was not happy that this came out in the US market. Yeah, just give us the double album. I was really upset, but you know, luckily when you work at a record store, it wasn't that big a deal, right, Mark? I could just order a copy and I was fine, but yeah.
Just so everybody knows.
my number two is the first song that really hit me with this band. I talked about it earlier. It One of a Million, from the Apples and Oranges. It's a beautiful
Oranges and Lemons.
Oranges and Lemons. All right, I just got off the Pink Floyd. Oranges and Lemons. It's a very one of the millions where you can the lyric is about, you know, you don't want to upset anything, you don't want to rock the boat, but what you get is one of the best folk tunes with a fantastic psychedelic sort of melody where you have loads and loads of this sort of vocal arrangements in the end where you get this and it's just and it has clocks, you know, it's got chimes in it, it's just a beautiful tune, and I just wanted to explore that band, and I love the A side as well.
I'm telling you, man, this album right here, everybody talks about the Dukes of Stratosphere. They talk about the Todd Rundgren produced Skylarking, but I think this is better than all of those records, man. This is the one they took everything that they learned. Yes, this is the one with the great Pat Mastelotto on drums, the only album he drummed on for the band, and so automatically I'm going to have a little bit more of a predisposition to fall in line with this sucker. But I love every single song on this album. This also is a double album, but in this case, vinyl was pretty much a done deal, so it came out the same in the US as in the UK. But fantastic record. Good call, Pontus.
Absolutely. And number one, we go back to Apple Venus. I love this track. I think it's one of, when it's ornate pop, it's orchestral pop at its best. It has vocal rhythms. It has, it intertwines with the orchestration. It's called Rivers of Orchid. It opens the album.
Yes.
And it's how the voices work, how the orchestration work, and it's 8 minutes of it. There's no drums on this tune, but every single movement in it is actually rhythm.
It's all percussion, you're right.
Yeah, it's always
the drops of rain.
It's almost like Stravinsky, right? It's always
yeah.
like da ba 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 bum. It has that beautiful, and it's very, very, very orchestrated. It's just a work of genius.
It's genius. Like you said, there's no drums in it, but you've got like little raindrops and stuff, which add percussion. You've got the strings. Oh, are they bowing? No, it's in pizzicato, which does what? Creates a percussive effect. Same thing. You've got the trumpet, but they're muting the trumpet, so it adds percussion to that whole. Just amazing. What a track. What a way to start an album.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
So that's my number one. I have a boatload of, honorable mentions. Shall we do them?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. And I just got to find it in this phone here.
Did you? Hey, if you don't find, I'm pulling up. Actually, I do have Wayne's list here. So
yeah, let's do Wayne's list.
While you're pulling up your honorable mentions, I'm gonna give the people Wayne's list here, since
absolutely
everybody's missing Wayne. They're wondering where Wayne is. My loyal co-host. It's all right, but I'm a little more worried about Cody and Tara both leaving me high and dry today. I'm pretty sure I saw them on a stream last night, but that's neither here nor there. Wayne's list goes a little something like this. No, I did not just call them out. Yes, I did. At number 10, it's the Mayor of Simpleton. At number 9, a non-LP track. I love it. Chain of Command, which was a bonus track off of Drums and Wires, I believe. Number 8, Science Friction off that very first EP. Number 7, Garden of Earthly Delights. Fantastic. Great. Number 6, Books Are Burning. Somebody mentioned in the comments about the guitar solo in that song. Couldn't agree more. At number 5, off of English Settlement, Melt the Guns. Good one. At number 4, Grass. Off of Skylarking. Number 3, No Thugs in Our House. I love that track. Such a great song. Our little boy couldn't be a Nazi. Oh yeah, he's a Nazi. Trust me. At number 2, the Ballad of Peter Pumpkinhead, and at number 1, the song that got evangelicals all over the South here in the U.S. all up in an uproar. It's Dear God, with a couple of honorable mentions: Jason and the Argonauts, Battery Brides, Wonderland, and Holly Up on Poppy. Good list, Wayne. You did your homework. Obviously, you didn't pick those songs at random. You actually were doing your listening research, so I appreciate that. But what do you have for honorable mentions for us, Pontus?
Oh, there's plenty of them. There's on the Apple Venus album, we got Your Dictionary.
Yeah.
It's a breakup song of all breakup songs.
He's angry.
K-I-C-K. That's how you spell kind. He's going for, apparently he had his marriage has just ended. So this is a send-up song to that. And we've probably been in situations where the situation is that you can't see eye to eye on a daily basis.
Right.
So, it's S-H-I-T. He spells out those words.
Right.
S-H-I-T. That's how you spell me in your dictionary. And it's a beautiful acoustic tune. I also had Generals and Mayors, Summer's Cauldron and Grass. I had Runaway from the English Settlements. Shore Kills and Children, The Smartest Monkeys, Ballad for a Rainy Day, Thousand Umbrellas, Millions, Green Man, and You're a Good Man, Albert Brown.
Oh,
Curse Your Red Barrel.
Nice.
So those were my honorable mentions. It's really hard to do this list, right? Because it's so good.
Andy Partridge is such a great songwriter. And, honestly, he really leaned into Colin Moulding to write songs. Originally, Colin had no interest in being a songwriter. So that was Andy kind of leaning on him to contribute to XTC. So I guess it's no great surprise why a lot of those Colin Moulding songs do sound a little bit like Andy Partridge songs. They even kind of sing similarly. I mean, obviously, nobody can mutilate a song quite like Andy Partridge. And the one complaint that I do hear about XTC sometimes from some people are Andy's vocals. I say get over it. And I'm going to get on my soapbox here just a little bit while we wait for Mark to come back up. And that is to anybody that has any kind of pull with Progarchives, because I'm here to tell you, man, I'm getting a little bit tired of seeing metal bands, you know, like Opeth and Black Sabbath have a listing in Progarchives. Jazz people, you know, John Coltrane and Miles Davis have listings in Progarchives. Oingo, Boingo, and Talking Heads are in Progarchives, but please explain to me why, for the love of God, XTC is not part of the Progarchives database. It's an absolute sham. It's a shame. It's a situation that needs to be taken care of. If you need any more evidence of their prog bona fides besides listening to their 12 albums and their 2 records as the Dukes of Stratosphere, which obviously you haven't, Colin Moulding assisted with Days Between Stations. Yeah, they're a prog band. Barry Anders, after he left XTC, what did he do? Yeah, he went to go join the League of Gentlemen with Robert Fripp. That's kind of prog. How about Dave Gregory, Tin Spirits, and a little band maybe you've heard of called Big Big Train? That's pretty prog. What about Andy himself? Yeah, he's worked with Mike Kennelly from the Zappa band. He's worked with Peter Blegvad from Slap Happy. He's worked with Harold Budd. He's worked with Steven Wilson. You know, I'm getting a little bit tired of people saying, you know, XTC and Prague have no intersect whatsoever. I get it. They're not capital P Prague, but they surely deserve to be in Progarchives. It's an absolute shame that hasn't happened yet, Mark. But you know how it is with these people. They got their minds made up. But I'm on my soapbox here today because I know I'm right. I know they're wrong. And one day they're going to see reason. But, you know, it's not a big deal.
It's still a very good band, and you should check it out.
That's right. That's all that matters. Is Mark frozen, or is he really like deep in thought right now? I think he's acting up a little bit. So I'm going to let him deal with his thing. And you know what I'm going to deal with right now, Pontus? You know, I kind of went back and forth how I was going to do this. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to point to like the proggiest moment on each of their records. And
it'll be interesting.
Here we go. Oh, this is going to be fun. Oh, here we go. I got the stack here.
So you have all the albums.
All their records here. And I might as well start with their debut album, 1978's White Music. Probably their least proggy album, I guess. There's nothing on here I would call prog. It was preceded by the 3D EP. So there were actually 3 songs on here. 2 of the songs that made it on here were originally recorded on here, but probably the proggiest thing on here, I'm going with a song called Crosswires. It's a Colin Moulding song, but it's got a weird rhythm to it. But overall, like I said, the early stuff, not super duper proggy, which is weird because they got the keyboard player early on, right? So you'd kind of figure, you know, maybe that would be the proggier stuff. Probably my least favorite XTC album was the second album, Go To. And even here, there's some great songs. But I'm going for their proggiest moment on here. I'm going with the Battery Brides. It's so progressive and art rocky that it's parenthetically titled Andy Paints Brian in tribute to Brian Eno. So that's what we got there. And then, like we said, Barry Anders left. The great, the one, the only Dave Gregory joins the band. They put out their masterpiece, Drums and Wires. So many proggy moments on here.
Yeah.
This was, like you mentioned, this was one of the albums that kind of started that whole drum sound. This was the first one with Steve Lillywhite, Hugh Padgham. They were tinkering with that they hadn't quite gotten there yet. You know, maybe you could argue that Peter Gabriel 3, you know, might have been where they absolutely perfected it. But this is where it started. You know, this is where they started getting that ginormous drum sound. Was on this record. And the song I'm picking is Millions. There's so much cool counterpoint and stuff snaking around and weird rhythms and everybody in the band doing their own thing rhythmically, kind of a nod to, Asian music, I guess, here. But I just love this album, my favorite XTC album.
It's very interesting. It's very interesting both with, if I just can say that, it's very interesting how these bands go into gamelan music.
Yeah.
Both Fripp and Talking Heads and XTC and all that, the sort of indie sort of thing goes from picks up this sort of rhythmic sort of interchangeable things, and makes very interesting stuff.
There's that common thread through it all, and it's that time and music too. And you see a lot of shared like production teams, like we talked about Hugh Padgham, but also Dave Gregory from XTC. After he performs on that record, he goes on and plays on Peter Gabriel 3. So some of the musicians were interchangeable there too. After Drums and Wires, 1980. Same production team. So you've got Steve Lillywhite, Hugh Padgham, and they knocked this out. Black Sea is their loudest album. It is their most aggressive album. The whole thing's got so many cool, super great proggy moments. But the last song of this album is called Travels in Neon, and it's pure prog. It's just a pure prog track. It's just crazy, makes no sense. Absolutely love it. Next up is English Settlement, the U.S. single album. But you got to have the double album, man, because if you don't have the double album, you'll miss the Yacht Dance. And this is just a cute little, it's kind of like prog folk, right? I can almost hear Jethro Tull playing on, right? Yacht Dance kind of sounds like a Tull moment. So that's English Settlement.
That's a great tune, Yacht Dance.
I love that. I love that track, man. And then the troubles begin after English Settlement. They had a nice hit with Senses Working Overtime. They had that big tour planned with the Police. The Police were on absolute top of the world. It's going to be the golden moment, man, right? XTC is going to conquer the world. Well, Andy gets stage fright, and the rest is history. I guess his girlfriend flushed his drugs down the toilet. He was hooked on Valium. So as much as they want to tell you it was stage fright, it was more Andy was freaking out. He didn't have his drugs. He needed to get back to the UK to get his drugs. Oh, he claims he never touched the drugs after that. I'm not so sure. The product of all of that chaos is this album. Andy decides he never wants to tour again. So the drummer's like, why do you need a drummer for? So he leaves after this, but we have some magical moments on this record. If this is the nadir of this band's catalog, man, any band would love to have this as their worst album. If it is in fact their worst album, but I'm going with Beating of Hearts from this album. I absolutely love it. I think it's an amazing track. But you mentioned Love on a Farm Boy's Wages. Definitely could have gone that way again, kind of giving that pastoral English feel, which makes you think of like Steel Ice Band or Fairport Convention or something like that. And then the whole MTV world was up in arms, and XTC was trying to get some traction. Murmur didn't sell that good. This one didn't do great for them. It was kind of their attempt to get back to what they were doing before. I like it, but I don't love it. Probably the proggiest thing on here is the song that opens side 2. It's the everyday story of small town. Very British. That's like the Kinks or something. It just feels so uber British that maybe it's not super proggy, but anything that's uber British automatically kind of makes me, think about it. And, the whole train thing, tying into Big Train. Dave Gregory's in XTC. Next thing you know, he's in 30 years later, he's in a band called Big Train. I think that's kind of cool how coincidences work like that. But the band needed some shaking up. They needed a change. And they found it from the past, man. And going back, bringing John Leckie back in the producer's chair and finding all these old vintage instruments and just having a good old time. 25 o'clock, the title track. Just love it. That keyboard sound, it's ridiculous. In the middle of that whole Dukes of Stratosphere thing, yeah, they put out Skylarking with Todd Rundgren at the helm. And, you know, a lot of proggy moments here, but what am I going with here? I'm going with Season Cycle. Probably the proggiest song on here, but I love the whole thing. And then they come back with another Dukes of Stratosphere album. I love this whole record, man. I mean, just fantastic. But I'm going Pale and Precious. Why? Because it sounds exactly like Pet Sounds. And yeah, Pet Sounds is arguably as prog as it gets, right? Oh, boys and girls. Then we go into the oranges and the lemons, and I just love this album right here. So many different tracks I could go with. Garden of Earthly Delights, Mayor of Simpleton. But I'm going with Across This Ant Heap. I think it's got the weirdest kind of feel and sound. It's kind of creepy. I dig it. Like it a lot. None Such has been getting a lot of discussion here. Books Are Burning. So good. I'm going with Then She Appears. Off this track, that this track off of this album just to me kind of feels like, you know, early 1970s Prague a little bit. And then, like you said, they take their long gap. They're at war with Virgin, and it goes on and on and on. And then finally, they break free, and they put out Apple Venus. And it doesn't get much proggier than River of Orchids, does it? The Green Man's really cool. Easter Harvest Festival, Easter Theater, rather. Great tracks, but man, the opening track on here, River of Orchids, just amazing. And then their final album doesn't get any love at all. This is the one without Dave Gregory. He's out of the band by this point, so XTC's down to a two-piece. And yeah, they kind of went out with a whimper, not a bang, but still in all, man. The last track on here is called The Wheel and the Maypole, and it's kind of a mini suite, and it goes through a couple different changes, and it's really cool. And, you know, again, for an album that's maybe not peak XTC, still great. But those to me are kind of like their proggiest moments. But, you know, probably their proggiest stuff was not on their albums. They had a whole series called the Homo Safari series, which had stuff like Procession to Learning Land and some really cool, bizarre instrumental stuff that I really love that kind of reminded me of The Residents a little bit. Then they had some really bizarre tracks like B-sides like Heat Wave, Pulsing, tracks like that are absolutely amazing. But yeah, my love for XTC knows no bounds, Mark Robinson, none whatsoever. You know that. I was a freak for them back when we met. I still am. Nothing's changed.
Well, I mean, you know, one of the things too about XTC that going back to Are You Receiving Me, which is, you know, I think in '79. Yeah. The video, great video for that. But whenever they did, I always enjoyed their video work, and especially Dear God, which was, I think, a phenomenal video. I can't. Video. What's that?
I love that video. It caught a lot of people's attention.
Yeah, it's it. But it's interesting. I probably can't comment the way you guys can on specific tracks and people that played on whatever. But it's interesting their evolution, especially when you get to the, you know, when you started that kind of jangly, and I kind of, you know, Mitch Easter, that guitar, that jangly guitar sound that he kind of made popular.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, you think about that whole, you know, Pylon and REM and, you know, all those bands doing that stuff at that particular time. Yeah, they were very much indebted to XTC and probably the Flying Nun stuff in equal measure. You know, the whole jangle pop New Zealand stuff certainly was catching the ear of a lot of those bands. But you know what? I never really thought about it that much because there was definitely some real transitions in XTC's music where they go from being this weird, herky-jerky new wave band to kind of sound like jangle pop sometimes, or, you know, sounding like the Beatles later on. Just amazing how they were able to, you know, make those transitions and always still sound like XTC, though.
Well, and I think that's the genius of Andy Partridge, man. And that's one of the things I love about the band is how he's able, he never, I think one of the things about him is he never liked to fit into any certain box or any labels or whatever. And he'd always, so there was never any defining, you couldn't call him new wave, you couldn't call him punk, you couldn't call him this, that, or the other thing, which was great. It's one of the things I love about him is they don't fit into too many categories. Their tentacles go in a lot of places. And when you look at, again, the revolution from the beginning to where some of their endings, and very little, but I could totally see that, coming together with them. I think they were big fans, at least Andy Partridge.
No, definitely. And
I think so, though.
Andy's a funny guy. He basically got himself kicked off of Twitter a couple years ago, and he's kind of been, keeping to himself ever since. People want to see reunions and things like that, but Andy has been, doing some side projects and some things. What was it, the Club Men 3, and he did a couple EPs on his own. So he's, but the chances of an XTC reunion are absolutely, there are two of them. There's slim and there's none. Those are the only two chances you'll ever get an XTC reunion. We did have that XTC thing where Colin and Terry Chambers were doing some things together, doing some shows. They put out an EP. I think they released like 4 songs that definitely sounded like XTC,
But Colin Moling, does he do anything? Because I didn't know if he had his own band or
Colin's not doing much anything right now.
No,
as far as I know. But what's sad is they're all living in Swindon, man. They're all living in this tiny little town. So if they wanted to, and basically all it would take is Andy to show any interest at all. But apparently Andy and Colin hadn't spoken in quite a while, and it's just weird. They don't live that far apart. Why didn't one of them just pick up the phone and talk? But they went through a lot together, and you know how artists are. They may not. Some of those glory years, maybe they don't want to relive, right? You think you just automatically assume that that's what they want to do. Maybe they don't. Maybe that's the last thing in the world. They want to bring back some of those painful memories, man. But,
I mean, if you were a person also that wants to move forward, it's very hard to move backwards, right?
Yeah. And Andy is a forward-looking guy, and
and I think for the others as well. I mean, they Dave Gregory is now in Big Train, and I mean the Teen Spirit albums were just fantastic. I highly recommend them. They are very good.
Anybody that doesn't know their music, there's such a plethora. 12 albums and then the 2 things from the Dukes. So, I would personally start right at the beginning. I would start at the 3D EP, start with Science Friction, and then go to the first album, White Music, and go in order because there is such a cool journey. And, I came into the band in 1979 with Drums and Wires. Oddly enough, that was the first one I heard, and funny how that's still my favorite, but, that happens a lot, right? Where that first one you hear has such a huge impact on your life and on your brain. But yeah, Dave Gregory no longer in Big Train. Just for clarification there.
All right.
Peter Jones says there is a lot of love for XTC from the guys in Marillion. Yeah, there is a video online of Marillion playing Senses Working Overtime. They bring Dave Gregory on stage and they do it. So that's kind of cool. Definitely. Stephen Wilson's a big fan. Andy Partridge. Andy's co-written a couple songs for, Stephen Wilson. So, I mean, it just goes on and on.
Yeah, absolutely.
XTC will never get in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They weren't big enough for that. they deserve a space in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame based on
They
their
do. They absolutely do. I mean,
their influence.
the influence. I mean, the influence. They are musicians, right?
Yeah.
Once you find that sort of band, you pick up different aspects of it, and you do different things with it. So, I mean, that that band, I think now is considered a must-have from the 80s, especially. Yeah. I mean, Stephen Wilson has been talking very well about them on his podcast, and there's other people who's been very, very huge spokesman about this band and picking up those records. And I would say, if you want to start with, the latest stuff, you can go with Skylarking. If you want to go with the psychedelic stuff, whatever you go, I would say you can, as you say, you can go from the beginning, but any of those albums you can pick up and find something really, really good. And you will find, it's like finding a secret, a bit of a secret, secret music that just sits there and waits for you. And you're going to go. I remember, for instance, when I picked up Nonsuch, there was no sort of big fanfare. I think I found it in a bin and just brought it home, and it was just a bloody masterpiece, right? So that's how you can find things, right?
And that is true. And honestly, one of the things that absolutely appealed to me about this band was they weren't as big as Talking Heads, right? They hadn't reached that level of success in the US market. So they kind of did feel like my band, right? I was the only person I knew that listened to them. So it was like you were in a secret society. And as time went on, I started recognizing and realizing that almost every single person I met along the way that also liked XTC, they were all musicians, man, right? They are kind of the musicians band, and that I'm sorry, bro. They're one of those bands that they're so good. If you're not a musician, or if your brain isn't working in a musical kind of way, operating at a very high musical level, you're just not going to understand it. Simple as that. You're not. And that's why I love them so much. I have always loved them from the minute I heard Drums and Wires. I've said it before. They, to me, there's three bands I absolutely cannot live without. There's Yes, there's Genesis, and there's XTC.
Cool.
And, that's how much they mean to me in my life. So, Pontus, what do you got going on this week, man? Do you have any big plans with Contrarians or anything like that?
Well, I've been a bit off on the Contrarian thing, but I really I've been involved in a bit of a book project. So I don't know if I can talk about them really, but they will be fun to you go through certain albums and certain groups and things like that, and it's going to be fun.
Awesome.
And more information about that.
Yeah, more information. Don't spill the beans on that, but it's always good to know, that people care about your opinion on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I love to. I'd love to go through certain albums because you find certain albums like we did with Iron Maiden, for instance. Last week. I didn't know Dance of Death that well, so I had to listen to it. And it's actually when you start doing that and you return to things, you realize that there's something here that I missed the first time.
No, absolutely. And honestly, one of the things that I love about doing the Prog Corner is, for example, yes, I'm going to tie this into a plug for content coming soon on the Prog Corner. I am planning on doing a ranking the albums for Hawkwind next week, man. And
that's a huge one.
It's a huge discography. So there's going to be some records in there that I've blatantly never heard before, or
No.
B, I've like listened to once or twice in my entire life. And then other records in their discography, obviously, you know, the better known ones from the 70s, I've listened to, you know, hundreds and hundreds of times. So
Yeah.
it's fun to be kind of almost forced into listening to, you know, some of this stuff. Because honestly, I wouldn't have gone back and, you know, listened to some of that 80s Hawkwind material had I not had this ranking pressed over me. And thank God, because I'm actually really, really enjoying some of what I'm hearing that I hadn't heard before, or a new appreciation. So yes, I will be doing a Hawkwind ranking next week. And
cool.
We had last week on our Iron Maiden episode, we had the great Dave Bandana on. I'm going to be reviewing his new album, The Bardic Depths, What We Really Like in Stories. Phenomenal record. And then something else, too, that I don't want to talk about yet, because you know how people steal.
It's in the works. It's in the works.
In the works, yeah. But, you know, I can't give stuff away too soon, you know, because I'm the same way. I'm like a spider. I'm ready to pounce. Oh, Andy Edwards has that looks good. I'm stealing it. Basically, who am I stealing from? I stole from Barry last week. I'm stealing from Andy Edwards this week. You know, at least I give credit, you know, when I do that kind of stuff. Yeah. But you know how it is. Hey, we got Grant in the house. Look at that.
Oh,
look at that. The man Grant, with the greatest voice on YouTube is in the peanut gallery. We appreciate you. Yeah. The Hawkwind thing is going to be a lot.
With a band like that, it's almost hard to know what is the core catalog, right?
Yeah.
Because it's so much compilations, illegit live albums, and you don't know where the gray area starts and where the official releases are. So that is a base, man. I really gonna appreciate you ranking those stuff.
And this is where honestly, this is where I do defer to Progarchives in most cases. You know, if they say hey, there's 38 albums here, I'll go with that. But you know, sometimes I disagree with that too. Like they don't always get it right. But that's my primary source for what I'm doing there. So that's my week. Next week, again, as always, I want to give a shout out to Kevin at Prog Radio. You guys know every Friday at noon on Prog Radio, you can go check out the Prog Corner playlist where they play all the stuff that I talk about on the channel. But you know, I can't talk about it because I live in constant fear of copyright strikes and having the channel demonetized or worse, taking down permanently, deleting the 388 videos and the 945,000 views. Yes, we are going to hit 1 million views here in the next month or so, Pontus. Very, very exciting.
Keep subscribing.
Yeah, it's exciting, man. And, so don't forget Kevin at Prog Radio. And then next week, Easter Sunday, we will be going live like we do every Sunday, but unfortunately, we will not have Pontus with us.
No, because I will
breaking my heart. We are doing Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and I know you love them. So
you will have my list. You will have my list. So I'll be there. So the ghost of me will be there.
The ghost of Pontus will be upon us, and then. I don't have Wayne to keep track of this stuff. He's supposed to be like my program director. He's supposed to be helping me out with stuff like this. He's not helping me out with anything today here, man. But I think what we're going to do the week after Easter will be best album sides, right? We did best sidelong epics.
Oh, yeah.
What about best album sides that don't have an epic and no side 2 of Foxtrot does not count?
No. Okay.
Don't get cute.
You have to have.
Don't get cute. Sides. Yeah, I know Horizons is on there. Supper's Ready's the sidelong epics. Don't get cute. It's the best album sides. That's April 7th.
Ooh,
and then we're planning the return of Alex from the Beer and Vinyl channel. Apparently, he's kind of leaning into Marillion pretty hard. How do you feel about a Marillion episode?
I think it would be great. That would be something that I would be sort of getting my teeth in, because I'm not really a Marillion fan,
Okay.
but I do. So there's so many albums, but I would love to anticipate that and be very honest that I'm very much a newcomer to that band, especially
I
the
don't know
90s
if I'm
stuff.
making it official yet. I just got a DM from Alex while we were here live saying that the 14th works for him. So, okay, I'm going to make it official. There it is. This is your upcoming schedule, boys and girls, next Sunday. Easter Sunday, March 31st, it's Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And then April 7th, we're doing best album sides, your best album sides that don't have an epic on it. Like I said, don't get cute with Supper's Ready. We know better. And then April 14th, we're doing Marillion, the top 10 Marillion songs. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a great cast of people here. But, this was a lot of fun with just me and you and the occasional Mark Robinson popping up when his Wi-Fi was actually working. Mark from Punk Media, doing a great job over there. Check out his YouTube channel. He's putting out some really cool content, primarily like the Gigi Allen and the Tiny Tim stuff. We don't care about the Wedge piece stuff. Nah. We don't need to talk about Wedge piece now.
I will check it out. I will check it out.
And then next week, we've got the great Scott Davis from Myth of Logic. He will be joining us next week for the Emerson, Lake and Palmer episode. It's going to be great. He's been chiming in here regularly, except today. I guess he had something to do today. That's why we bumped the ELP episode. To accommodate him, that's what we do. I'm a nice guy, Pontus. I can't.
Yeah, I know.
Try to accommodate everybody.
It was fun to talk about XTC, and I mean, it's a journey well worth taking.
Yeah, I think so. And the people seem to be excited about Marillion, so it's official. We are doing Marillion. And let the arguments between H and Fish commence right now. But I am on record as saying I love both eras of Marillion. I didn't think that, originally I really didn't like H at all. So anybody that chimes in and says the only 4 good Marillion albums are the first 4, I hear you. I understand. But you, my friend, are dead wrong. You absolutely are, because Marillion does have albums like Brave and Fear and Marbles and the new one that absolutely beg to differ. So that's what's on the schedule. Anyway, Pontus, any parting words for us today?
Not really. Just subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Help Scott out.
Oh, and I'm pretty happy. I was going to show this earlier. Just got my copy of the Comedy of Errors, Threnody for Dead Queen. Yeah, I haven't even opened it up yet. Let's look at this vinyl. It's from Plain Groovy. I think it's colored vinyl, but I don't know. Hey, we got autographs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, on the postcard. I love Comedy of Errors. So
I do. I do too.
This came from Burning Shed, so thank you to the good people at Burning Shed.
Looks blue. Yeah, that's a blue one.
Gorgeous piece of vinyl.
Marble blue.
I love it. Anyway, I will see you guys soon. Like I said, next week we are doing Hawkwind ranking. I'm reviewing the brand new one from the Bardic Depths. Boy, we had fun with Dave Bandana on the show last week, so maybe we can get him back on.
Cool.
He was an awesome guest talking about Iron Maiden.
So was Ian.
Ian says get on with the outro. He's ready for a bathroom break. So anyway, guys, peace in the Middle East, y'all. Free Tibet, and God save the king and the Princess of Wales also. Let's keep it real and serious for 1 second. Cancer's no joke. We love you, Kate, but I don't know, King Chucky, man. I'm not going to be so easy on you, sir. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. So come on out to America. We'll fix you up real good. We'll dance with snakes. We'll sing and dance and say some incantations. We'll get you all better there, King Chucky. Anyway, I'll see you punks tomorrow. Peace.